The water systems in the East Bay began over 150 years ago. They got their water near a creek or from a spring, or they dug a well. And then Anthony Chabot built the first reservoir in the East Bay, Lake Temescal. And a few years later, he built San Leandro Reservoir.
Water supply was small private companies setting up reservoirs and ponds up in the hills, were diverting the rivers that flowed here, and it was enough when there weren't a lot of people.
There were literally dozens of water companies. They all failed because they couldn't provide a reliable water supply, they couldn't maintain water quality, and they couldn't keep things affordable. And so EBMUD was formed on May 22nd, 1923, when George Pardee, former mayor of Oakland, former governor of California, led a commission to create a public utility when California recognized that private water companies can't meet the needs of the communities.
Thus was born the East Bay Municipal Utility District. The new water district was ready to drive the first great aqueduct 94 miles out across the land and to construct the dam that...
From the time EBMUD filed the first water rights application until the first delivery of water was 5 years. They didn't have computers, they didn't have lasers. They had a lot of people doing a lot of hard work, but they did it.
By day and by night they toiled, hundreds of men and gigantic machines at work. Higher and higher they raised the great structure. Monsters like this ate their way through the valleys and across the foothills with amazing speed. In less than 4 years, the dam stands ready and the pipeline is completed.
We've really been innovative since the very beginning. When we built Pardee Dam, it was the tallest concrete arch dam in the world.
Foot by foot, the level rose until billions of gallons of the purest, softest water these cities had ever tasted.
Fundamentally, we are an environmental company and we are a public health company. That is what we do. Our mission statement is to manage the natural resources, is to preserve and protect the environment, not just for the current generation, but for future generations.
Excavator! That's right, this is part of the excavator.
When I really look at our structure as a not-for-profit public agency that is represented by elected officials, I see a really great model of kind of partnership with the community that allows all of the varying interests to be represented. And I think that's the beauty of kind of a public agency with this incredibly important public service.
My mom comes to visit, I'm like, just drink from the faucet. What? We boil water. I said, no, we don't need to boil the water. I said, Mom, it's safe to drink, But we're the ambassadors, so then she's like, okay, I'll drink the water. But every person I talk to, I always talk about our water, which is really funny. I don't know why I never realized I talk about water so much.
Traditionally, when we talk about the people who created the water systems, we talk about the Anthony Chabots, or we talk about the George Pardees, or the Arthur Powell Davises. We didn't know who built the dam until we did a project to retrofit the spillway, and we uncovered all these Chinese artifacts. Hundreds of Chinese laborers really were the ones that built the dams. Some of them, unfortunately, were taken advantage of. They were paid less than $1 a day. Many of them died while they were building the dam. They lived in terrible conditions. And I think as an organization, this is something that we shouldn't be afraid to look back and say, you know what? We weren't perfect. We're not perfect today. We were not perfect in the past. And so it's difficult, but we will be a better organization when we recognize both the good and the bad.
Water supply operations are complex, trying your best to balance multiple competing priorities, including water supply for our customers. We have obligations to the environment. Dams and reservoirs serve an important purpose with respect to flood control. And we also have to manage operations to provide the best quality of water for our customers. It's not just about the quantity of water that we're drawing off the lake, but we're trying to draw at the appropriate elevations to make sure that we draw the right quality of water.
I came to EBMUD from private industry, and it was one of the most diverse places I have ever worked. You can feel like you belong. You're with people that are like you, but you also get an opportunity to learn about different cultures, and I think that makes it a very welcoming place.
When we do our work, we want to give back to the community. You look at the diversity in our contract equity program. I think one of the things that we can be really proud of, we've given back almost $1 billion to businesses in the community. And those businesses are also supporting our mission.
The types of recreation vary from reservoir to reservoir because the needs of water protection differ. But all the recreational facilities offer you a chance to explore and enjoy a wide variety of outdoor activities.
Working with California's Department of Fish and Wildlife, we've managed to ensure maximum salmon in the river and are able now to meet our water supply needs in a way that is better for our customers and actually make sure that our salmon numbers are better.
The Mokelumne is the only river that has achieved that goal. It's not a huge river. It contributes about 1.5% of the total flow into the delta. And yet we provide in some years up to 40% of the commercial and recreational fishery for salmon for the entire state.
When you put a dam on a river, the river becomes a bathtub shape and you end up with a channel that's very uniform all the way down. What we try to do in river restoration is bring the bottom of that channel up, let the river spill onto the banks, and then what you get is something that looks like this. So under higher flows, this grassy area here will be inundated with water, and all the bugs in that grass will become food for fish. And so fish can grow really quickly in that area and get really big, and then they have higher survival as they move out towards the ocean.
The fact that this land is protecting your water supply gives it a special dimension.
I don't think you can be in the water business and not care about the environment.
Everything you see surrounding San Pablo Reservoir is a watershed. So we manage all these lands so we have less erosion, less sediment, and really our job is to protect this reservoir. So the reservoir goes approximately about 4 miles up to the dam. This is all watershed land here. And as we bump up to Briones, this is actually Orsan Trail. This is open to the public. It's a really nice trail. It goes 11 miles around the reservoir. Absolutely beautiful. We have several million people that live just over the side of the hill. Berkeley, Oakland's just right there. And yet here we have almost 10,000 acres of open space that we're trying to manage. So we're pretty lucky.
Most of our water supply today still comes from the Mokelumne. But in 1976 and 77 was the worst 2-year drought on record. And we recognize that we can't just rely on the Mokelumne supply. And we built our Freeport facility to take water off the Sacramento River.
In 76 and 77, our customers got the message from EBMUD, and their rate of conservation resulted in about a 35% reduction in the amount of water that our customers were using.
There is that iconic picture from the 1977 drought of the Party Outlet Tower being fully out of the water. And there's no question in my mind that if we didn't have the facilities we have today that allow us to move water from the Sacramento River, that we could have seen a repeat of that picture during some of the recent droughts. And we didn't.
People come from all around the world, living and wind up in the Bay Area. They'll boil the water before they drink it, or they'll never drink it. They'll buy bottled water, and we'll have the opportunity to educate them on this is where your water comes from, and this is why it's actually safer than bottled water. It's gratifying to see that light come on.
The majority of our water is actually Sierra snowmelt. The water treatment plants treat the water for things like metals, pesticides, bacteria.
The water quality when it comes in has various organics and turbidity that needs to be removed through the water treatment plant processes. We're able to view our coagulant feeds as we settle out solids, and we're able to make changes here based on trends that we see. Once you get used to the screens, an anomaly becomes very obvious, and that's what we're looking for, something that may be trending in the wrong direction, or something that may be not performing correctly.
The Orinda plant is the largest of the 5 plants. It receives water directly from the aqueduct, and due to its elevation,
It's able to serve a large part of the distribution system without pumping.
Right here is one of the original drawings from the Orinda water treatment plant. The Orinda treatment plant is nearly 100 years old. It was built with just what we call a filtration process. And we are currently making some significant improvements to the disinfection process at that plant.
With the changes in water supply that we are having to plan for and think about with climate change, that is part of the investment that we are making in water treatment plants to not only meet public health standards at the state and federal level, and to essentially do better on behalf of our 1.4 million water customers and nearly 800,000 wastewater customers.
This particular structure is about 60 feet deep, and we hope to finish it in another 4 years. And that's an area that we as engineers are extremely proud of, because you see something that you've actually put together on paper actually materialize in front of you.
We are always challenging ourselves to do better on behalf of our public and the environment. And some of those questions have to do with finances. What is the cost of doing things differently? And so we always have to weigh that against what is the cost of not doing what we need to do, of not being creative, of not pushing the envelope.
I really like the breadth of work that we do. So we support the water side, we support work in the watershed, here treatment, like at the plant, EBMUD, energy, recycled water. It's a really broad group of people that we work with and that we need to find ways to meet their needs.
Not many people think about what happens when someone flushes down the toilet or washes dishes and what happens to the water. So that water being dirty, we can't just put it out into the bay or into the rivers, because in the receiving waters it can harm animal life or people.
And in early days, all of that sewage flowing from Oakland and Berkeley and the other cities would just go out onto the mudflats and cook in the sun.
By the 1930s, the odor of the bay was so foul, people avoided its eastern shore.
When the Bay Bridge was first built, people said you had to roll up the windows of your car because it smelled so bad down in that area of the mudflats.
East Bay Mud came in the 50s and built this treatment plant, and we built our collection system. We actually call our collection system the interceptor system, and that's because back in the day the pipes just kind of flowed downhill and out towards the water, and we built our pipes north-south along the shoreline to intercept that flow and bring it here.
The digester treatment process is basically, it's an anaerobic treatment process, and the example that I always use, it kind of works like a stomach. It's maintained at a certain temperature, and it just breaks down all the pathogens in the solids. The end product ends up coming out as what we call cake, and it's very fluffy. It can basically be used for landfill or land application, basically for anything that's non-edible.
East Bay Mud has been serving recycled water since the 1980s for cooling tower use for one of our large refineries. And right now we have built separate facilities to be able to capture those large users like the refineries and large irrigators like golf courses and parks. With climate change, a lot of the options that we had for supply are potentially at risk. And so we are looking at how we can maybe expand recycled water, where we would provide even more treatment to it, and then we would add it to the distribution system.
We employ nearly 2,000 people. We provide great careers. When people come to East Bay Mud, they'll stay for 20 years, they'll stay for 30 years.
We've gotten out into places like the Cypress Mandela Training Center in Oakland. We've gotten to a lot of high schools to do a lot of recruiting. Our goal is to try to get as many people that live within our community to have an opportunity for a good job and to hopefully start a good career here.
We're a big nonprofit, but we're like a city. Every discipline that you would find in a big city, you got in East Bay Mud. And now when people come and get in to be a trainee or get into an apprentice program, they learn the trade, and then they can step into the job.
When we are working on large capital projects, so the investments that we're making, for example, in renewing our pipeline infrastructure throughout our service area, we are looking for those pipes potentially to last 100 years.
So one area we've gotten really innovative over the course of the last 8 years is putting into the ground pipe materials that we know not only are going to last, more than 100 years, but are seismic resilient, hazard resilient. We're testing these materials, we're simulating fault ruptures to see what are the best materials out there.
When you think about aging infrastructure, the emerging contaminants that we have to deal with, climate change, those are big challenges. And then on top of all that, that earthquake can tear apart our entire system. And to make matters more challenging, we have to keep our water affordable.
We are in the East Bay MUD Contact Center, so this is where we accept incoming calls for customers. We are the face of the district. Many people are struggling with their bills and they're calling for financial assistance. And even in the more affluent neighborhoods, even there, we're seeing a lot more financial need.
I'll make a plan over 12 months so that
helping a customer get their bill paid off or finding a leak and working with the customers so that when they hang up, they don't feel like they're in worse shape than they were when they called is my biggest satisfaction. Because I hate to hear stories where they've got a $1,500 bill and they've got $5 to pay on it. And so that's my greatest when they hang up and they're happier.
Yes, it is 17:33. I wanted to reiterate what East Bay MUD is because
today is my last day at work. I've been working here for 30 years. I've never not wanted to come to work because it's been such a positive experience for me.
We have a kitchen, we cook, we have gatherings, whether it's for people getting promoted or retiring like we had this morning. We were with these people for 9+ hours a day, so they're all family.
I really like the camaraderie. Guys are watching each other, taking care of each other, working together, they collaborate a lot.
I actually had an uncle who worked here. I knew he worked here, had no idea what they did. No clue whatsoever, thought they dealt with mud, with actual mud. So around the time I had my first child, he was like, hey, you should try to become a plumber. I said, I got no idea how to do plumbing. He said, I didn't ask all that, just try.
Every job is a little bit different. That's not only interesting, but challenging. And I like the way guys come together and they find a way to get the job done.
It's a badge of honor. Right out the tap, East Bay MUD, I don't have to go to the store and get bottled water.
My passion's always been photography. While I'm working with a crew, I'll have my cell phone, so I can still take a snapshot here and there.
I'm Native American, so I want to get back to the woods and back to fishing and camping with my son. We do a lot of hiking and just doing things that my heart leads me on.
I'm done. You want a piece of cake?
If you'd ask anyone, you go out in the field, if they want to talk about their job, their core is the pride in how good our water is. I mean, that's our core. That's that center of our compass of why we do what we do.
When I walk away from work each and every day, I feel like I've made the community better. By putting hazard resilient pipe in the ground, improving water service for customers, and put together solutions that are really effective.
I see our customers that are using recycled water, it makes me proud because I know that the water that they are using to irrigate, for example, is potable water that we are saving for other uses.
It never stops. How can you solve this problem where you have to maintain the infrastructure, you have to do all this work, and yet you have to keep it affordable? And really the only way that we can solve the problem, and I think we knew that 100 years ago, the only way we can solve the problem is by innovating. And that's the great thing about having this innovative culture at East Bay MUD. We are never satisfied with what we've done. We always want to do better.